Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Welcome to this week's Sublime Text Live, which was slightly tricky to get going. Turns out I did something a little funky with my settings for the stream. It kept complaining about how the key was going to be reused. Eventually, I figured out the dumb thing that I did. But we're all good to go now. How is everybody doing? I hope you had a fantastic week thus far. Did you watch this week's video? What did you think of it? Well, hello, Axel. Welcome. How you doing? How's the coding language coming? You got that double inheritance in there yet? My goodness. We have fun. Such good times. Oh, my goodness. It is the start of a week. Turned out to start, I'm going to say good. I'm going to say my Monday was a good Monday. I did have to get a retinal scan, which took a little while before I could actually get in. Normally, it's something that's very quick. Basically, you just stare into a machine, look at a red cross, then move your chin to the other side, look at a red cross, and you're out of there. It's done by a technician, takes hardly any time at all, but there was a real backup in there. But I was tasked with something this morning that was heinous and horrible. It involved updating a couple of Git branches with what was 1,139 commits behind in one and 118 in the other, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, super duper long. Nah, YouTube's latency is not as good as Twitch's is, so it's just that slow, unfortunately. We did play for a while with changing the latency to be ultra low latency, and what that means is everybody just gets to see a spinner all the time because they don't really have the back end for it currently, or at least they didn't a few months ago. You just have to put up with being 10 seconds behind, as weird as that is. The thing that made my Monday a good day was that I had to do that horrible update for those branches with thousands of commits in one and hundreds of commits in another to bring something up to date because there was a problem someone was having. And it was thought, it was believed, it was conceived that the reason was there had been some sort of recent change that might have explained it, except for the part where the developers of the part we were testing said that they hadn't done anything in a very long time. While I was in the middle of this, the person who wanted me to do it sent out a status update that said that I had finished everything and things were working now and she was proceeding with her task. So I'm like, so good. I resolved a problem before I actually finished resolving the problem. So, hey. And Axel says, the language is coming along. I haven't put in a ton of the weird things yet. Been mostly working on normal expressions, like being able to do basic math. I remember the old infix notation parser with the PEMDAS and the like. Good times. Good times indeed. I've done that once. Actually, I've done it more than once. But one time I did it with RPN, because then it's up to the developer to put everything in the appropriate order, and it's very easy to parse. So, onus is on you as the developer. That was a simple sample language. But I have done one of those in the chit chat library or the chit chat language I created. Sorry, which is almost but not quite entirely like small talk. I'm good at naming things. Naming things is like the hardest thing in coding. I swear to God. We got a couple of questions. Oh, you did add a weird thing already? For anybody that's watching this, Axel is a friend from Twitch, where I also stream on Mondays and Wednesdays. Sorry, Wednesdays and Fridays. I stream on YouTube on Mondays. Yeah, my goodness. And he was sort of giving me the business in Friday's stream because I was using JavaScript and I was using classes. And we don't use classes in JavaScript. Well, I mean, I do, but other people don't. And he's making his own language that's better than JavaScript with hookers and blackjack. In fact, forget the classes. And Instead of making operator precedents, I force parentheses around different operators. Yeah, see, that's like totally the deal, right? As long as you make sure that all the parentheses have to evaluate left to right, make your life easier as a parser developer. Speaking of, Ben, the Sublime Text dev, who sometimes hangs out in the stream here and in the Twitch streams, has a Sublime Text package called SBNF that allows you to create syntax definitions for syntax highlighting purposes, using BNF. Something I've been meaning to play with for a while, but it has been a hot minute since the last time I did anything with BNF. I tell you what. So we don't have a couple of questions that people have asked. I apparently did something dumb. What did I do? What did I do? We want you. You is what we want. There, there, there. Put those in the appropriate order before we continue. There are no rules for order except group. Yeah, see? Now, like I said, I did something similar to that by using RPN notation instead, which also makes evaluating things on the runtime nice, too. You don't have to worry about, the code generates nice and clean. You can practically execute things as you're parsing them in that particular case. Man, that was a long time ago. Is that a peg? I've played with that a little bit in Lua, if that's what that is. Similar to regex, but not really. Here, let's do one of these. Parsing expression grammars. My eyes, they're burning. Oh, my buttons, I'm pressing the wrong ones. There we go. It's a new pattern matching library for Lua based on parsing expression grammars. This is a reference manual for the library, actually written by one of the developers. I haven't played with it in a long time, but I remember thinking that it was pretty cool at the time. This was back in the days when I used to hang out in the Lua mailing list, but I got a little tired of all of the language lawyers in the language. Great group of people, very helpful for a lot of things, but also there was a whole lot of people trying to use every possible language construct and every possible script, whether it was required or not, which I guess is sort of a fun code golf exercise. But also, despite the fact that Lua is publicly open source and anybody can have anything in it, everybody wanted the Lua developers to take on adding their pet patch and building it into the libraries and then the language rather than just modifying it themselves. They didn't want to do it because maintaining things is hard, but for some reason it's easier if the actual developer does the thing. I never really understood it myself. So, pardon me, I haven't hung out there in a while, but yeah, this was one of the things I was playing with a way back. That's cool. Do you prefer it? Is it easier to write stuff like that? One of the things that I find as a C developer is that doing anything with strings, even now, after all these years, if it's something where I need to be parsing the string and examining the contents, always seems weird and foreign and wrong because my brain is so wired to want to use pointers and pointer aliases and the like that it is ridiculous. We have a few different questions to look at here today, and something that someone in my Discord popped up and wondered if there was a way to do something like this in Sublime. And to some degree, parts of this are possible, not necessarily with this particular UI, but maybe. But I thought it might be a sort of a fun thing to actually look into. That coffee is hot, man. Yeah. You may remember from such places as my Twitch streams that I'm working on a Twitch bot over there that required networking to some degree and parsing of incoming strings to some degree. There's a reason why, of all of the things that we've done in the stream, talking to Twitch's IRC server isn't something that we mocked up ourselves with our own native code before we found a library. I made sure I knew how WebSockets worked. I made sure I knew how overlays worked. We added everything. We created our own little prototypes before we went on. Animation stuff that we've been working on, we did by hand before we started using a library. Talking to network stuff and doing string parsing in JavaScript, I did not have that in me. We'd probably still be doing it. Oh, hang on a second. I got an itchy ear here. I had an impromptu shower right before the stream because it is raining rather heavily out there right now. So that was rough, man. There's a little bit of JavaScript spliced in for organizing things. Hello, Ayush. Welcome. So I have here a couple of questions. We thought we might discuss these a little bit, but they're also going to be possibly topics for upcoming videos on the channel as well. And let's go maybe short to long in this case. 13 hours ago, Valeria Hernandez said, "Hi, is there any way to permanently keep files and folders in the sidebar? Every time I close the program and then open it again, the sidebar is empty. I have to open every time the project." This is one of those things that's a rather common problem that people report. Valeria doesn't say, but I'm guessing, it would be my wager, low scale wager, but wager nonetheless, that Valeria is using Mac OS. Because by default, Sublime, when you type some random crap and quit it, when you fire it up, it remembers. The default settings are remember the entire state of the program, including files that were open, text that was selected. If I click the right thing and it restarts, will come back. Folders that happen to be open. I opened Discord. No wonder that looks a little wonky. Etc. All of that stuff comes back auto-magically. If you happen to be using something like a project or a workspace, then everything that you do in this window, when you close this window, if we were to save that and close that window and restart, it will come back as well. The problem, I would wager, is this. The setting that's involved in this is hot exit. And if we look at the default preferences in Sublime and look at hot exit, what does it say? It says exiting the application with hot exit enabled will cause it to close immediately without prompting. Unsaved modifications and open files will be preserved and restored when next starting. Closing a window with the associated project will also close the window without prompting, preserving unsaved changes in the workspace file. You can set this to always do it, only do it when you quit, and it's defaulted to always, as we see here. So if you're using Sublime Text, by default, quitting Sublime will in fact restore the state when you start it again. However, here on Linux, closing the window when there's only one is closing the application. And then you click the button again and you start it. On Windows, clicking the X to close the window when there's only one will quit the application. And then when you start it, it'll come back. On Mac OS, however, and I'm pointing over to my right because I have a Mac over here. On Mac OS, closing the window does not terminate Sublime. It just closes the window. So what you end up with is Sublime still running. You told it to close a window. And then one of two things happens. You restart your system or something, and when you come back and start Sublime, it doesn't restore anything because it's actually restoring the state that it was in when it quit, and the state that it was in when it was quit was there was no window. Or You close the window thinking you're quitting the application, but you're not quitting the application. And when you click the dock icon, what you're telling Sublime is, hey, create a new window. And it does, and it's empty. So it looks like you're quitting the application, then you're starting it, and you're not getting any of the state brought back. That's just a vagary of macOS, that applications don't quit themselves. The magic of this particular operating system is things are a lot faster to start if the application's already running, just waiting for you to open a window. You get a lot of perceived startup time improvements in that particular case. So, is there any way to permanently keep the files folders in the sidebar every time I close and open? The sidebar is empty. Make sure that hot exit is turned on, and if it is, which it is by default, make sure that you're using the quit button or the quit item in the menu and not just closing the window, or use like Command Q on macOS to actually quit the application. And as it says here, workspace, is that the answer? That could also be related to that sort of thing as well. Because if you close something, and again, it's really hard to do that here. There, I have an open window. This particular project is a project. It has a workspace associated with it. Close the window. Yeah, I mean, quit Sublime, restart Sublime, it restores back to the state that it was in. You have to know how to bring that particular thing back, if I could push the right sequence of keys, in order to recall the workspace. This same sort of thing can indeed also happen, particularly if the settings are set such that a new window is created at startup. Then it can really appear like you thought you quit it and you didn't. So that's what I would guess is the answer to that, and we'll have to follow up with Valeria to see. I'm gonna do that in the comments, but this is subject to potentially being a video on the channel. I think we've talked about the sidebar before. I don't know if we went into any detail on that, but it could be useful to have a video on hot exit in general, right? In fact, maybe we can just sort of throw that into the list right now. Let's see if I can do a little bit of a thing here. We need to click the appropriate button to bring it up. That's this one over here. Watch the eyes. Sign in with this and that. And there we go. Sublime Text. Hot exit and ways it sometimes goes wrong. This is asked frequently. Whoops. But on November 1st, Valeria Hernandez asked it as well. We'll make sure we just save that into the list of videos that are probably going to happen. Hello, G-Bound. Welcome. How are you doing? I'm on YouTube, kind of watching some Twitch streamers as well. Got to keep things going. The other question, speaking of Twitch, is this one, which Cylon Scion asked, someone that is actually somebody that hangs out in the Twitch streams that we do on Wednesdays and Fridays. I can't remember. Did I set up a command for that? How you doing, sir? Doing good? That's cool. I was mentioning earlier, on the whole, on balance, good day. I had to go in and get a routine retinal scan. Don't worry, I'm probably not going to die. Oh yeah, look, that works. Yay! It's just one of those things that the doctor is keeping on top of. Usually, it takes very little time to get a retinal scan. Basically, you go in, you don't have to see the doctor. You see a lab technician who tells you to come in, sit down, put your chin on the blue dot and press your forehead to the blue pad, stare directly at the green cross in front of you, and don't blink. Okay, now move your chin one notch to the right, stare at the red cross, don't blink, done. Takes hardly any time at all. I was in the office for about 35 minutes, which only bothers me because my wife was waiting down in the car for me, and usually it's very quick, so dinner was delayed. On the other hand, I had a rather heinous merge handed to me to update one of our QA systems with latest code because one of the other developers was having a weird bit of a problem, and the thought was maybe it's because this code is a little bit out of date. The people that were working on the subsystem that we're dealing with don't remember changing anything, but that doesn't mean anything, right? I started a rather large, like I said, 1,300 commits in one repository and like 118 in the other. While I was in the middle of all that and making sure everything was cool, the person that originally asked me to do this sent a status update to the team saying, hey, ODAD Nerd is finished with the thing and everything is working now, so I'm proceeding with my task. And I'm like, hey, I fixed it. I didn't actually do anything yet, so I don't really know what was actually wrong, but hey. Yeah, it's kind of like, getting your retina scanned for, opening a door lock type purpose. Only in this particular case, they take a picture of it's like a topographical map of your retina, and then they can tell you which parts look a little bit too high, which parts look a little bit too low, which parts are maybe bleeding when they shouldn't be, and so on and so forth, making sure that, vision keeps going. But that part was, it's not a painful thing by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it's kind of annoying because this particular specialist is so busy that they don't ask you, hey, when would you like to come in? They hand you a piece of paper and say, this is the date and time at which you will arrive here. So, that's kind of a thing. On the whole, though, if that's what you're going to complain about, that you had to wait for a half an hour playing a game on your phone in the doctor's office before you were out of there, 2.5 minutes later, and while you were doing a heinous merge that you didn't really want to do, problems magically fix themselves, you're doing pretty good. This particular question was asked, as you can see here, 3 hours ago. I captured this right before the stream started from Cylon Scion, one of the followers on our Twitch streams as well. And Cylon said, cool, I also want to submit a question. I want to change how Sublime highlights a certain word. So I imagine that requires some tweaking of the syntax highlighting done by the color scheme. For example, imagine I want to change the syntax color for the word import in Python. How do I do that? And that one is kind of a double-edged, tricky kind of question to answer, because what applies in syntax highlighting requires the syntax definition to do parsing and tokenization of the data in the file to be able to tell that the word import is there and is special, and it applies specific information to each character in the buffer, which we refer to as a scope, which provides hierarchical information about exactly what this particular character is for in the grand scheme of things. And then a color scheme has rules that say anything that is for this purpose, apply this color rule, which is sort of the hand in how this works. The syntax highlighter for Python knows import is a reserved word and applies a scope to it, and the syntax highlighting system in the color scheme knows anything with that rule should be red. So is it possible to change the syntax color for the word import in Python? Yes. Is it necessarily possible to do it in a way where import is the only word that's changed? That part is perhaps a little bit open-ended. As we would like to say for that one, that is this one. Is it possible to do that in the general case? There's only one way to find out. In some cases, when you want to do something like this, you have to indeed touch syntax highlighting, which makes it a non-trivial thing whatsoever. But for our purposes here, let's say we close this project, split that window, go a little bit like this. We can actually test this and see how well it might work. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to split the window this way. Here we're going to create a scratch buffer for Python, and let's see, they said we're talking about the import. Change the word import. So we might say import OS, and then what? Class sample. Something like this is theoretically valid Python. Note that this is purple, and this is purple. So possibly how this all works out for us may not be that great, but let's see. And here we're going to say, User Mariana Sublime color scheme. So if we were going to change anything about our color scheme, as a matter of fact, we'll even do a little bit of this. And put this one over here. And in this one, Mariana color scheme default. So this little pane over here is the default color scheme for the Mariana color scheme, which is the one that I'm using here. It's the one that's defaulted in Sublime Text 4. It defines some variables for some colors. It sets some global colors, what says, globally text is white with this sort of bluish background. It's really kind of a gray color. A vibrant blue accent color, orange carrot, which we can see right there, and so on and so forth, all these different colors. Tags are defined to have a stippled underline, for example. And then there are various rules. Anything that matches this scope is considered to be a comment and is this blue 6 color, which is actually kind of a gray color, if we're being perfectly honest. Strings are green. We can kind of see that right here. This is a string. It's kind of green. Punctuation for things is blue 5. For example, maybe this character right here, and so on. On this pane over here, this is my augmented color scheme. In this particular case, everything that's in this pane applies on top of the default. So you can customize things here and otherwise have the default. So I have a slightly darker background color because otherwise it seems a little bit too washed out for me. I change the colors for the mini diffs. I make the diff line wider so I can see it and things to glow. And then I have various colors here. Hello, Ashwin. Welcome. How you doing today? Well, I hope. We're just sort of going over a couple of questions that have been asked recently on the channel. This will probably be topics of future videos, unless this particular question has already been covered in the color scheme videos. I can't remember. I'll have to look into that. If we were to do something like this, we can see the scope that applies to this. There's 3 lines here. Each one of these tells us hierarchical information about the character. So least specifically, this is a character in a Python source file. More specifically, it's an import statement, and most specifically, it's a keyword that controls things, and it's an import statement inside of Python. YouTube needs a lurk emote. I tell you what, I've been seriously pondering. I heard that YouTube is going to be bringing gift memberships to YouTube. I'm pondering the idea just to see, what happens of adding channel memberships to YouTube. I could make a level for 99 cents that just has emotes so that we could use emotes in the chat. Would be like 99 cents a month or something, and I think we're going to be gaining the ability to gift those out. I don't see that being like a huge thing, but it would be fun to play with, at least for myself. I assume I end up being a member of my own channel, one would think, right? Yeah. These 3 scopes apply to the word import. If we were to check this, this is a meta Python, and it's a keyword, but it's the declaration of a class. Whereas in this one, it's a keyword, but it's a control keyword that does imports. So if we were to do something kind of silly over here, we could say that the scope is keyword, and the foreground color is white, and those 2 things will end up being white. This one doesn't end up being white, and I think that's because there's something more specific that is available in here. But that's not really what we want to do. Let's say we already want to make this magenta, but what we only want to be magenta is the keyword import here. Note that that also had an effect in other places as well, right? Keyword.control.import. So we could say keyword.control.import. And now only the import is purple and everything else remains the color that it was before. In this particular case, this is something that we could do. There are other potential issues with how this might work for you. For example, let's say you wanted these to not be this color and you wanted these to be green instead? Well, we know it's an entity name class, right? So do I have a... I do not. So here's what we can do here. We can add an entry in here that says entity.name.class. And what color did I say that was going to be? Purple. And now that's purple. I mean, very hard to read, glowing purple. Where you run into problems is I only want sample to be purple. Well, now you're looking at modifying the syntax highlighter because the syntax doesn't know or care about the name of a class. It only knows that this is the name of a class. So that level of something will not do what you want. Similarly, what if you wanted this to be highlighted? Well, it only has metascopes associated with it. You could try coloring that and see what happens, but we don't know exactly what it'll actually be. Have a button next to each scope that creates a rule in the color scheme. Now, that'd be interesting. Would it use the scope for the lines above as well, or only for the one that's clicked on? Also, that would provide lots of specificity. Do we want to try to handle that in some fashion? But that is sort of an interesting... I assume there's nothing like that currently that would make that sort of thing easier. First of all, I got to remove that. I do a lot of sample things that I sometimes end up keeping, but magenta is not going to be it. We need a better example of a plugin. For example, this is what? It's a qualified name and a generic name. This one's generic name too. So this is where you run into this sort of thing where you'd say meta.generic name and the color is like green. Now a whole bunch of stuff turns green that you didn't necessarily intend because this one has the scope for meta generic name and this has the scope for meta generic name. So that might not be what you want to use for something like this unless you want everything to be green. But this also has meta qualified dash name. So maybe we want to change generic to qualified. Now it's applying to those two, but it's also applying here because this is a qualified name. But this is a import statement. This is a meta.statement.import. So if we said meta inside of a meta statement import and any qualified names in there, make them green. Now we're getting a little bit more like what we want. We probably want like light green, right? Make that a little bit more vibrant. I just did the editor config Sublime thing. Yeah, see, I like the idea of that. That is a neat thing. I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere before. The issue with it comes into like what we just saw here. Sometimes narrowing in on these sorts of things is kind of complicated. But maybe there's ways around that. What if we imagined this? We're just spitballing ideas here. This is what we do. If we were to say, not printing because that's not the correct thing. Let me see. What's the editor config Sublime thing, Gbound? Is that the deal where control files in the directory tell the editor to use slightly different settings there? Or is that the one where there are comments, or both? Built into Sublime. is the ability to edit a color scheme, right? Customize color scheme. And what you get is a split window with the default color scheme on the left and your color scheme on the right. What if there was a window that was created like this one? Don't pay no attention to the fact that there's a pane that's sort of under here that you can't see. So in the top would be the file content that you're dealing with, then the default color scheme, then your color scheme over here. And you might want this one to be able to refer to things, right? What if up in this particular panel, I have a thing turned on. When this is here, there's not just one button here. What if there's several buttons over here? There could be an icon for create a new rule for this. And it'll go into this pane over here and add in that rule with the little stub, allowing you to specify the color, for example, the same way that that one does. Or you could have an edit button there as well. And in that case, it would come into the color scheme, try to find the item that has that rule associated with it and highlight it so that you could modify it. Let's further say that this was smart enough to know that if the cursor was inside of a rule, over here there could be buttons in the pop-up that do add and remove, that add this into. Or rather, maybe you click here and it inserts at the cursor location so that you could build yourself something up. Maybe some sort of expression creator would be handy. PHP Storm color schemes? Off the top of my head, I would say probably no, unless it uses TM theme files. But I don't remember it being a TM theme related file. I think IntelliJ tools use an entirely different system to be able to highlight things. There could potentially be a tool that is for mapping those sorts of things. But there are some color schemes for Visual Studio Code that you can share because it shares a syntax type. But that one might be a little bit too far out there, unfortunately. Can you provide a link to one? Because technically TM theme files are XML related, but they would have to have this particular structure. It's basically an Apple P list. If it follows this and has these sorts of items, note this is the same as the thing that we were just looking at. The name of this key is comment and the scope is comment.block, and it should be this foreground color, this background color, and italic. If it's in that sort of format or similar-ish to that sort of format, it could possibly be converted over to apply. So there's that. Yeah, I was just thinking, we have this thing that we have created previously. There could be buttons in here. So, imagine, if you will, this sort of situation. So you might want like a bigger split than that based on these things. Or maybe the context probably isn't something that you need for something like this, right? I know that there's a setting for that. Yeah, let's see. Display trace. Normally set to false. I think that'll make life a little bit easier. There we go. So that'll show all of the stuff. There could be buttons over there. We also have the other ability of that thing. Let's turn that off for just a second. You can say view scopes and say everything matching source. Well, that's the whole file. All right. What about things matching source.python? Nope, that's not the whole file because I spelled it wrong. But if I spelled Python right, then it is. Did I not have that assigned to a key? I did not have that. I thought I did. Any comments? No. Any keywords? Yes. Those are the things that are keywords. You could sort of use this to dial in things as well to get a sense for what your color scheme is actually doing something with. So those are the things that are all of those. We could say meta.qualified name, and that's a bunch of things. But now that we know that, we know these are the only ones that we want to deal with. So this is the one where we could say meta statement import, right? So we can say meta statement import this. So if there's a qualified name inside of an import statement, that's the thing we want. Or you can, reverse those sorts of things if you want. And maybe do this. All of the meta statement imports except qualified names. Then it's the parts of the line that aren't the qualified names in that particular case. And then we could add like a minus whatever. I can't remember what this one was actually called here. That was entity name class, for example. There's a lot of stuff that we could do. I think if you want to build your own parser just to see how it works, if you check in the issue tracker, Tom created one. He logged an issue for things not quite working right, and I'm pretty sure he has Python code in there that replicates what Sublime does behind the scenes. He was using it to do stuff with logic. It could be something that would be fun to play with, indeed. But I do like the idea of a color scheme editor. I wonder how that would ultimately look. I wonder why I decided there should be no padding on those sorts of things. I wonder also what if there was a command, because there's this view.extract scope for view.cell0.b. While the cursor is here, tells us that particular region from offset 45 to offset 59, which is this whole word right here. It might be easier to see if we did it that way instead. Starting at 0, going to 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's this. That would give you the region. You use that to figure that part out. You can get the scope at the cursor as well. How specific is that? And exactly how does that work? I don't quite remember. Oh wait, what are we looking at here? Scope name, what we want. The syntax scope name assigned to the character at the given point. Right, okay, so looking at this, if that was there, instead of extract scope, Hello, Abhishek. Can we make it when we hit Control P, it shows only files but excluding get ignored files? That's a good question. Do you still want to see them in the sidebar, but you don't want to open them? Because, yeah, let's do a new window for this. Oh, whoops, pardon me. Look at the default pref set. That'll exclude files ignored by Git, but that's just the index, so it won't find symbols in them, but it would still allow them to show up. I believe the only way to do something like that, and perhaps if Ashwin's handy, he might know better, would be to include the get ignored folders in the list of folders you don't want to see in the sidebar, and then they won't be tagged. I think you can also use binary file patterns for that as well. Do we have documentation for that? We do, don't we? Here, let's see. Pretty sure I have a link for that, but nevertheless. Patterns of files to include from the folder, files of patterns to exclude, folders to exclude, binary file patterns, patterns of files to treat as binary. So I think that that wouldn't work for folders, if I remember correctly. Pardon the squeaky squeak. I think basically what you'd have to do is use a project and folder pattern exclude the items from get ignore. I know the find in files functionality now has a get ignore button, but I don't. That's only for finding. That's not for opening. And this particular setting excludes get ignored files from the index, but the index is only used for things like auto completion. So the list of files would still include those particular files even if they were get ignored. So there's that, unfortunately. There's some clock skew between my multiple computers. That can't be good. I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of easily making color scheme rules using that pop-up now. You should totally build that, Ashwin. And I will showcase it on the channel if you do. In fact, if anybody makes a cool plugin, I will showcase it on the channel. With the mighty power of my subscribers, bring it to bear on your work. Let's see. Oh, right. This bit here totally requires package dev. Oh. Normally it would look like this. That's a string. It's a mapping key. Meta.sequence. Let's see. Yeah, as I suspected, that's everything inside of the rules array. So that's probably a little bit, much. Meta mapping value. It's everything that's the value of a key. Hmm. Everything that's a mapping except the keys and the values. That's interesting. My goodness, I need to drink more coffee apparently. So that's a mapping with a section for a mapping begins. That's a meta mapping. So we can get like a twofer in there. So it only pulls out first layer things. That would do what we want. Pardon me while I forget mildly how score selector works. I cannot type today, or most days, sometimes. Oh, come on. What did I do wrong there? Given a point returns a string. That's a string. Why is an integer required? Matches the selector against the given scope, returning a score. That is an intriguing. All right, well, I mean, that part's got to work, right? Yeah. Maybe I'm doing it in the wrong order. Is the help for this wrong now? It must be, huh? Let's take a look. Score selector. Match the selector against the given scope, returning a score. A score of 0 means no match. Above 1 means a match. Different selectors may be compared against the same scope. Higher score means it matches better. So, matches the selector against the given scope. When it says the given scope, one would assume that is a string, but apparently it ain't. I know I've done this before. That just seems weird. Hello, sir. How you doing? We're playing around with some simple plugin prototype idea things and realizing that I've apparently forgotten how the API works, as the brain tends to do at my advanced age. The arguments are a scope name and a selector. That makes it seem like the first thing is the full scope name and the next thing is the selector that's matching it. But if that's the case, then I'm doing something real dumb, because this is the scope name at a place, and this is the scope selector, but an integer is required. What stupid thing am I doing here then? Is this not a view thing? Must be a view thing, right? No, it's not. It's a Sublime thing, isn't it? Did I not pay attention to where it's actually located? Yeah. Phew! Good news, everybody. I'm just a boob. Hello, Dev. How you doing? There we go. Smooth one. I have a thing. I have a thing for that. This one. No, well, also I was trying to call it on a view and not on the other thing. Yeah. That's a dumb thing. Is there actually a view score selector? This is why we come up with stuff like this. Wait, like that. There we go. Yeah. If I point over there, then it points in the correct location. In case something accidentally goes right today, I totally have this one as well. I don't know that we'll actually have a chance to do something with this one, though, the way things are going. But we're sort of... nah, there's no drop game here, I'm afraid, sir. I have not worked out the semantics of getting a bot to talk to YouTube. Seems fraught with peril. It probably requires paying money to Google to vet the app, too. The thing that we're just sort of kicking the tires on as a potential idea of some sort is... whoops. The idea that in a pop-up, or sorry, a phantom like this, or in the actual scope pop-up, you know, that you get when you do the thing, and you get the pop-up, that there could be little buttons along the side that you could click on to add a new color scheme rule based on the item that you've clicked on, or go to and find all of the rules that would apply to that to show you what colors there are. Or if your cursor was inside one of them, which is why we're kind of figuring out where each one is, then maybe there could be a plus and a minus button of some sort that would add or remove those scopes from the scope selector if they existed, probably at the cursor location. It seems like a kind of a neat idea, but it also seems sort of fraught with complexity in how selectors work in general. But it's sort of a fun thought experiment on a thing. This all comes about because someone asked if there was a way to change the color of the word import. And we worked up a simple example for how to do exactly that, which apparently I have redacted out at this particular point in time. The thing, I'd like to do a video on this. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have done at some level. I've done videos on color schemes previously. I have a whole playlist about them, as a matter of fact. But it seems, in the general case, not necessarily fully straightforward what scope that you would need to apply to something to get it to do what you want. In as much as it's very easy to do, generally speaking, once you're familiar with how everything works. But if you wanted something that sort of is targeting in on people that just want to fiddle the colors of things and don't want to know the deep dynamics of color schemes, then things start to get a little sketchy. You know, as we were pointing out earlier, this is a keyword. So, if you wanted to show, let's turn that off at the time being. Oops. If you view scopes for keywords, there are many things that are potentially keywords. So if your intention was to only target some of them, then you got a little bit more on your plate. Or if we wanted to find these, that looks like it's meta.generic name. But if we use this and say meta.generic name, we realize quickly that there's more things that will match that than we initially think of. So now, with just the idea of I want the things I'm importing to be a light blue color instead of the normal colors, we're already adding a little bit of extra complexity in here, right? Because whoops. Oh, sorry. Let's use that one. The scope here would be, what do we say that the scope was going to be for that? Meta.generic name. And say we wanted the color to be the same as this one here. More things change color than we actually intended. And then we could look and say, well, this is a generic name, but it's also an entity name, so maybe we could redact that out. Or this one's an entity name, so maybe we could redact entity name out. Maybe that's a way to do something like this. Nope, this one doesn't have an entity name. This one has a qualified name. So we would have to try to redact that out too. That seems pretty complicated. But on the other hand, the other thing that's distinct about this is it has the meta statement import. So if we look for things that are meta statement import, and then inside of those what matches meta generic name, then we get to target in on what it is we're actually trying to hit with our color scheme rule, right? That sort of thing is easy when you know how it works. Again, generically speaking, if you have a lot of color scheme rules, that could indeed be perhaps a little bit hairy. But for the standard user, there's a little bit of a barrier to entry there. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any simple throw a rock at it and now it's very easy for people to edit color schemes type changes to this. We can make it easier to find rules that match though, so that might be something. In fact, that would be fairly easy, wouldn't it? Because you can say scope for selector or style for selector or whatever it's called. Style for scope gives information including the line and file that the thing came from. So if you wanted to open the file at the exact location where it's coming from, that would totally work, wouldn't it? So if we put the cursor here and said that's the scope name, well, I guess we probably want something different, don't we? We probably want view.extract scope for view.cell, maybe. Just to make it a little bit easier, and then pull that out as a string so we could get the word Sublime. Oh wait, that doesn't do what we want. Oh, sorry. I thought there was somebody knocking at the door, but it's just fireworks time. Halloween, don't you know? I guess that would probably still work, right? The scope name of this is that, and we say view dot style for scope thus, and it'll tell us that this comes from the packages user Mariana Sublime Color Scheme source line 16 at source column 26, which is here. Why did it say that? I don't have mixed commas and tabs or something in here, do I? Oh, no. Well, that's sort of a weird result. Hmm. 25, line 16. Are these off by 1? Ish. 27 and 17, one higher for each because they're 0 based, but actually columns and lines are 1 based. We could have the cursor, the plugin, jump us directly to the color scheme rule that applies to these sorts of things. What if this was commented out and the cursor was there and we did it again? Now it's pulling it out of the default at line 97, source column 27. So this is where it comes from initially. It's actually kind of handy. The problem with this is knowing what part of it came from what part of this, right? Because you'd probably want to know all of the places that the scope applies and not, or is applied rather, in the color scheme rule, as opposed to knowing the one that wins. That does make things kind of tricky, doesn't it? What's this? No, I think that's okay. I do like it as an idea, though. So let's think this through. Let's say we wanted a command where you put the cursor in something and hit a key and it jumps you to the place that matches. Simplistically, this API method will tell us exactly where this came from most of the time. I assume it's possible for that not to appear if it's grabbing a color for something that's being synthesized that doesn't have a specific rule in it. I know there's a couple of weird fallbacks. I think that applies to something like this. But what if you wanted to know all of the rules in all of the color schemes that are currently being used in order to be able to say with any definitively, these are all of the places where this is applying, and this is the order in which they're applied. This one applying last, which means it overrides more things than the other one. Is there a good way to do that? I'm guessing having to find all of the color schemes yourself. pardon me, based on the name of the current color scheme, find all of the files of that name and manually load and parse them. Is just going to the one in the most recently defined color scheme worth it? What happens if it looks up and it doesn't appear in our file and it only appears in the base file? Do we open the base file? Do we have the ability to copy the base file rules into over here to be able to customize them? There's a lot of stuff to be thought out about this. I'm not going to lie. Before I forget, our friend Axel is currently doing so. Oh, let me reload that. Is currently doing some streaming on Twitch as well. Alrighty. All right. Well, I thought that's not how I remember that working, but I'm just not convinced that it's useful to only go to the one that's actually being used for the color. Thoughts? Now it's the default color. Oh, yes, just do. It's the default foreground color that would normally be used, but now the background color is coming from us. So part of the rule is this one, and part of the rule is coming from over here. So what happens in that case? It still thinks line 28. Nope, that's coming from here. From source line 28. Source column 22. Sorry, 23. So in this case, because it's pulling the foreground from globals and the background from the rule, the place that it's telling us that this comes from is the base color scheme, even though it doesn't provide a complete picture of things. So I guess we would also need to be able to parse that too. Load up a color scheme and be able to find the hierarchical matches. I guess what you would probably do is find all of the rules across all of the color schemes that match the scope that you are given, and then in the order packages are loaded is the reverse order of when they're applied. So you could sort of synthesize that information by looking through and seeing, okay, there's one in the user file, that's the end of the line, but all it has is a background. So that's like one layer, but the next layer is where does the foreground come from? And the answer is here. And then after that, it would go somewhere else until it eventually found everything. Yeah, that is very... This sounds like something I've done before, but I can't remember why. Or where, for that matter. This seems like the sort of thing that smacks of programmatically generating color schemes, which is usually something that I try to avoid, all things being equal. But, you know. It's going to bother me that I don't know where I've done that before. what the heck? Let's build a little sample plugin. Let's say. Let's close. Well, let's get rid of that because that'll drive me quickly insane. Well, we'll comment it out because we might want to bring it back. And put that over there. We don't need you. We don't need you. This would be a text command. Yes, it would. All right. Did that actually load? Yarp. Okay, cool. Then oh, didn't do that right, did I? Oh. Oops. Cool. All right. The point is the self view selections first B point. So we double check that that does what one would expect. I mean, press the right key. See the relative character offsets of things. What we actively want is the scope at that item. So that is this one. Self.view.scope name at point. Does these need to be separate variables? No, they don't. They could very easily be the same. So we can say scope name, and now when we hit the key, we can easily see the names for all of these things, like so. That's one thing. So we have the name of the scope. Let's see. See, we do something like this. Yeah. I'm sure it's fine. Oh, whoop. Okay. So say the color scheme, if I could type, is equal to view.settings.get color scheme. This is already one of those things that quickly spirals out of control for some stuff because color schemes with different names will combine together, but we'll worry about that at another time. Whoop. It's got that, but guard your eyes, everybody. Hello, Concaz. Perhaps we have a lot of videos on the channel that talk about a lot of different things. Do you have something specific that you'd like to know more about? I'm certain that we can help you increase your ability to leverage Sublime Text. I'm out of soup, but that's okay because I also have emergency coffee as well. This is a valid way to specify the color scheme. And in that case, it comes back with a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, we broke that pretty good, huh? Oh, right, sorry. It's printing the result. We don't necessarily need it to do that. Let's take that part out. Cool. And if it looked like this, it'll still work. Cool. Now is the part I probably should have just commented that out, right? It doesn't necessarily even need to be a distinct method, but this will make it a little clearer to see what it's doing. Sublime.find resources star.sublime color scheme. Uh-oh, what did I do? Oh. Do you have videos covering every single thing like themes, shortcuts, packages, etc.? Can we run MySQL? You can, well, let's see. Oh, come on. We're going to play it like that, are we? Oh, maybe I just can't type. Uh-oh. Hang on, something's broken. No, don't do that one. Do this one. Let's see. Better. Oh, what was that? Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fine. That's all corked, but that's cool. Did I disable that? Oh, JS Custom just updated everybody, and it broke real good. Well, that's suboptimal. Let's cover that another way, shall we? Do I have videos on themes per se? No, I don't. Would you like to know something about color schemes and how they work? For color schemes, oh, no. Go back. That's not what I was trying to click. Look, man, I got more than that. Oh, sorry, pardon me. If you're interested in color schemes and how they work and how to customize them, then you want this particular playlist. If you want stuff to deal with themes, that's not something I have touched on yet in any great sense because, as Ashwin points out, they are not for the faint of heart, if you will. Definitely user editable, definitely not something that's easily explainable in a 5-minute video or something. It would definitely be longer. And I have plans to redo some of these videos in the newer, shorter format. You'll notice a lot of these are kind of old videos, probably a year and a half or so. I've shortened up videos to make them less boring. The information that's in these still applies, even though they were made for Sublime Text 3. If you want to know about how to execute SQL statements, then you want this playlist, which talks all about build systems, how they work, and how to create them. Long story short, Sublime can execute absolutely any arbitrary external program that you might want. You just have to tell it what to run and how to run it. Build systems are how you do that. So if you want to run a SQL script, you just build a build system that passes the name of the script file to whatever tool you use for the database that you're using, and you're good to go. Shortcuts, I don't have a video on shortcuts per se. That doesn't search my channel, does it? No. Here. Why does that think that it's not enabled right now is the real question that I would like to... Oh, because it's not actually logged in right now. Pardon me. Pardon me. All right. That'll make that a little bit easier. Okay. Now... Oh, sorry. I don't remember what the tags on that particular thing are. I gotta get better about that. Does somebody recall I did a video that walks you through the user interface? I don't remember what it's called. I know it's relatively new. Boy, this really went down a rabbit hole. A lot of the earlier videos on the channel aren't tagged as well as they could be because I really wasn't thinking that anybody would want to watch them. They were just for linking in forum posts and the like if people asked questions. So it's been a long standing task on the list of tasks to go through all older videos and retag them to make them easier to find and increase them in search results. That would probably do everybody a lot of good, but there are so many of them at the moment. Oh, my chat went to the... Yeah, says Ashwin says it doesn't come as one for that. One of the videos in that that build system playlist, there's videos on advanced custom targets. One of them talks about how to grab the selected text and pass it to a program to execute, and the use case for that is executing partial SQL scripts. And theoretically, you can. Yes, there's a couple of commercial packages that you have to pay for if you'd like to take a look at. If we bump over here real quick and go like so. One of those is SFTP by Will Bond. This is a commercial thing. You can try it out, but if you want to use it, you got to purchase it. There's another one, Sublimerge is one. Both of those are paid. Monokai Pro, I'm pretty sure, is a paid thing as well. Yeah, it's got a home page. It's got a buy. If you use SVN, That is by Will Bond as well, same author as the other thing. It also has a buy section on here. Those are the ones that come directly to mind for me. There's probably more. Yeah, Ashwin pulled up the same list. I wasn't looking at the chat. There might be more than that. Those are the only ones that come immediately to mind. But yes, if you create a package that people are interested in, oh, I don't know, it's interesting. I've never paid any attention to that before. Slightly newer version of SVN on Windows and on Mac and Linux. Huh? But yes, you have the ability to do that if you like. Sublime, if you have a package that is you think someone will actively use and would like to pay for, you can totally make money doing that sort of thing. I've only created the one large package and then a bunch of plugins, but it's not commercial. It's this one here, which helps you deal with your overrides in Sublime Text. Absolutely free though. Well, what do you mean by more powerful? Is perhaps an interesting question. More powerful in what way? Can it be faster and more performant? Yes, it absolutely can because it is. It's a native application. There are many things in Visual Studio Code that are a lot slower based on its underpinnings. But what you're going to do with it makes a difference to that sort of thing, and whether or not the speed difference even matters for you. But it all comes down to your definition of power. One of the things that you might find interesting if you're going to use Sublime is this. It's a client implementation of the language server protocol for Sublime Text, aka LSP. This is the thing that Visual Studio uses to provide code intelligence. This is a version of it that'll run in Sublime. It even uses the same back-end servers that Visual Studio uses. So in that regard, you can get pretty close to the sorts of features you get out of Visual Studio Code with this one if you want to spend a little bit of time setting things up. So there's that. I got too many windows. It's going to bug me now that I don't remember. Why did I not tag it in any sane way? I ask you. Oh, I guess it's probably this one. All right. Why is this not tagged good? In any case, that might be something that you find useful as well. It talks all about the different interface elements in Sublime and how to use them, which can sometimes catch people unawares. Packages, default color scheme, default Mariana, packages, user Mariana, packages, user SFTP Mariana. These are the different color schemes that implement this. The order that these are applied is the order that they're listed here, one would assume. I don't think that's a defined thing. I think that's just sort of how it works out. Many of the videos on the channel assume that you don't know the topic at hand. Yes. And you'll often find in videos, if it's talking about a topic in Sublime that video assumes that you know, it'll be called out and linked down in the description, video that will teach you the thing that you don't know. That's primarily because otherwise every video would just get longer and longer and longer. If you will. So it's one of the things I've been trying to work on more in videos is trying to provide only the detail you need for right now and point you at other videos instead of trying to rehash stuff because it makes them shorter and more succinct, more watchable, more helpful, better as a resource, that sort of thing. Let's change that, shall we? And return sublime.decode value data. Could be a one-liner. Gee, that's a good question. I would probably start with common questions. The common questions playlist is the original one on the channel. You will find, and I apologize for this, that the videos in that one are a lot longer in the beginning. Those are some of the very first videos that I created on the channel, but as the name of that video series suggests, there are, all of the time that I've spent helping people with Sublime, that those videos represent the questions that come up most frequently when people want to know how to use Sublime or how parts of it work, and so on. So if you just want to watch videos end to end, I would start there. You probably want to look at the playlist and look at for videos that look like something that you'd like to know to get started. But for watch time purposes, I have no problem with you just watching hundreds of hours of video. In fact, I wonder, is there something in the studio that actually tells you how much content there is? I don't think there is, right? I bet not. I bet not. And how many videos there are. That's kind of an interesting thing all on its own. Is that information that comes back from it is, isn't it? Oh man, that's kind of an intriguing idea. How to check total? Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking that. Because one of the things we have in there is videos with crap tags or something, right? Oh, showing videos with a missing table of contents. Which, as you can see, is a fair few of those. Is it possible to know how many hours a video is uploaded by a YouTube user without counting? I can see number of videos. Yes, it's possible and usually fairly simple. It's not a native feature. First, go ahead and open a tab in your browser. Oh, wow. I'm going to click a link and we're going to see what happens. Oh, no, never mind. That thing is totally broken. Yeah, I think we'd have to build something like that ourselves. That would be a very interesting idea, though. We might work on that in another stream. I don't want to open the YouTube tab. What? Oh, your hours watched. Pfft, that's not cool. That's not what we need to see here. One more. Go to the channel homepage, scroll to uploads, click play all. A playlist will appear, and at the very top of that list, you'll see your current video number and how many are total. Wait, but that doesn't tell you what you want to know, does it? Does it? I don't think it does. I don't think it does at all. I don't think it does, if I had to guess. There's 177, but it doesn't tell you how long. Well, I mean, each individual one tells you how long they are. Man, 177 videos. Good gravy. That is a lot of video content. I'll tell you that right now. Woof. Oh. Well, that is something that we're probably going to work on. I'm kind of curious about that now. Oh, wait. Was there more stuff here? Let's let you see what it actually is that I'm looking at here. It's a weird Quora site, don't you know? Oh, come on, guy. Thank you. Let's do a little bit of that too, so we don't go blind. Is it possible to get direct outputs when developing the front end of a website? Like if I press Control B, the browser window opens. Yeah, you can launch any tool you like and pass it a web page. So that's totally a thing that you can do. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have a video that talks about that very thing. Can't remember what it's called, mind you. Pardon me. That would be platform-specific builds in this. I'm guessing. Wait, is platform? Opening a web page in a browser. Yeah. Oops. I'm going to guess something along the lines of that. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that sort of makes me like, wow, man, it's been a while that I've been doing this. Speaking of the video that went live today, I had a bit of a problem with because I record the audio separate from the video. I mean, the camera is still recording audio, but I use the same sort of mic that I use here to get better quality because this room is very loud and echoey otherwise, especially coming from the mic in the camera. And then I need to blend the two of them together. And while I was doing some of the recording, I didn't realize this until yesterday when I was putting everything together. I hit the wrong key for something in the audio editing program. So I was recording the video, but I wasn't recording the audio. And I caught that at the end, but I mistook what I was recording in that particular clip. I thought I was recording the outro, but I was recording something else. And the outro, I should say. So I just restarted and did an outro and missed part of that stuff. And I didn't realize it until I was putting everything together, and I went and looked and went, wow, this is like the shortest video I've ever created. It's only 2.5 minutes long. Oh, wait, the whole body of it seems to be missing. So I had to quickly pull everything out and get set up and re-record that part and remember what shirt I was wearing when I did it as well. Which worked out, but I went mildly crazy because it was Halloween yesterday and there were a lot of fireworks going off. It was a gigantic pain. I had to pause and wait for the 500 Roman candles in the park across the street to stop before I went. Good time. Okay, let's see. Go back to your YouTube tab. It says go to the Analyzer tab. What are you talking about with Analyzer tab here, man? Let's click on this. Let's click on this. Well, that doesn't really answer anybody's question, is it? All right. Well, yeah, we'll we'll worry about that another time. That is going to be the Curious Maker. I will not sign up, Quora. Not now, not ever. Never. Oh, and it's almost quitting time here. Yeah. I will tell you this, Concaz. We've provided a lot of potential video advice. If you search around on the channel, you'll probably find some stuff. If there's any specific questions that you have, feel free to ask those in the comment section of the any of the videos on the channel, or if you're on the Sublime Text forum, you can message me there. You can message me on Twitter at ODATNerd. I have my own Discord, which should be linked down in the description down below if you want to go in there. The Sublime Text Discord is another place to ask questions if you want to have people other than just me answering them. And I can either point you at a video that will provide you the answer, or maybe that's an idea for a video that I can create, because I'm all about helping people get better at using Sublime Text and learning parts about it. I love this software. It is the cool, if you will. The gist of what the code that we're writing here is, just out of curiosity, finding all of the color schemes that contribute style rules. This isn't be-all, end-all solution. I'm just sort of curious what this might look like. And load their values up. Print scheme print self dot load color scheme. So the idea is when we execute the command, well, it's grabbing stuff that it doesn't necessarily need right now. So let's comment those out. It gets the list of all of the color schemes and then one by one loads them up. So if we were to clear the console and hit the key, we need to do a little bit of, oh, you know what? So there's the default, there's my user version, and then there's the version of the file that's used by SFTP, which applies failure and success colors as a rule patch so that it can use those particular scopes to highlight things in its little panel down here. There's an SFTP panel, which isn't displaying anything right now because we haven't done anything SFTP related. What we really want is something like this, where the idea of this is we could put our cursor on something like this. This code that we commented out will figure out the location where the cursor is sitting. It'll ask it for the scope name of that. It'll find all of the color schemes. And in this particular case, it's going to print out all of the rules, which we can see there. So this is a list of rules. This one's for comments. This one's for strings, etc. And the idea is, starting, in the last one and moving forward, find all of the rule entries where the scope here matches the scope that was passed in and display them. Let's see, shall we? Rules equals, let's change up how we're doing this a wee bit. Self.load color scheme for scheme in schemes, like so. And we'll do a little bit of that. So for each one of those, we will have the rules. This should do the exact same thing as what we had previously, right? We don't need that one anymore. And when we open this up into the key, if we do it in the right spot, we get the list of rules. So we have a scope name. List of matches. Scroll through here and say, wait, let me fix this. Import JSON, extra line. If Sublime dot, no, what were we calling here? What we're calling match. Match selector matches a point. Score selector matches a point. Sublime dot score selector is the thing we're trying to call here. So Sublime dot score selector. The scope name that we have is scope name, and the selector that we're going to be using here oh man, I forget how enumerators work. I don't do it often enough. All right, maybe I don't. Maybe I do remember. So we'll loop over all of them, and if the so we scored the selector provided with the selector, which is going to be for rule in rules index. Pardon me, we want to do it this way. Probably cooler ways to go, but you know. Rule, and it is scope. Cool. I still remember how arrays work. Double check. Crash. We get crash. We get crash. We get a crash. Unhatchable. Really? That doesn't seem right. What we're trying to do here, we're sort of playing around with plugin ideas, and this particular one is the idea would be that you put your cursor in something, hit the key, and a panel can open up to show you what color scheme rules are being used to color that, which will give you a hint as to how you could modify their color if you wanted to, amongst other things. It's the general idea of what we're going for here. In theory, all right, line 18 is the unhappy one. This isn't how dictionaries work in Python, is it? I've been doing a lot of JavaScript lately. Yeah. Okay. You see, you can really wreck your head. By using multiple languages. All right, well, I mean, that works. So, and then we do a little something like this. I do indeed. Let me find the thing again. I clicked the wrong thing. It's probably linked down in the description below this. But if you'd like to know how to create plugins and packages in Sublime, this is the plugin for you. Plugin 101. There are currently 21 lessons in this. As you can see, some of them are fairly long. More of those will be coming soon. It does require you to know Python. I don't teach you Python. I just teach you how to use the Sublime Text API in order to create plugins, kind of like we're doing here. And of course, if you have questions about stuff, then we can totally help you with that as well. New view is that, and we'll say syntax equals I don't remember what the syntax for that is. Hang on. You are the thing I want. Sometimes you don't remember the thing you need, but as long as you remember how to get at it, life is good. Don't say new. That's new view, bro. And new view dot run command append the characters of json.dumps matches indent equals 2. Well, that seems like it'll probably do a thing. All right, let's see. What color scheme rules, pardon me, are applying colors to imports in Python? Crashing. Whoops. Let's try that again, shall we? There are 2. The default color scheme has a rule for entity name tag, and my user version also makes them glow. Taken together, where was the cursor when I did that? Oh, it was in the, sorry, it was supposed to be up there. Well, the Sublime Text forum is probably a good place for something like that. Apart from that, the only person I know of that's doing this stuff is me. Actually, that's not true. Ben Frayne has a course where he teaches how to use Sublime. I can't remember where it is. If it's like a Udemy course or Skillshare, you'd have to look around. One just came out very recently. It's a paid thing, I would imagine. I've never seen it myself, but pretty sure he's a pretty good teacher from what I've heard. But you'd have to look and see that. I'm not sure off the top of my head where that actually lives. Nothing specifies the color of imports. That would explain why they're white, huh? Oh, I guess we should probably tweak that up a little bit. Like that, if I remember correctly. He's in the Sublime Text Discord, so you could probably ask him there as well. Yeah. Do you remember? Is it a Udemy thing or is it Skillshare? I can't remember. I want to say Udemy, but I've been hearing a lot about Skillshare lately, and I can't remember why. There's also some courses on Lynda, which became LinkedIn. That may potentially be interesting. They're also um, getting started with Sublime Text. I watched them a long time ago when we had a subscription to Linda because my wife was doing some skill refreshes, but it covered Sublime Text 2 and 3, and not all of that stuff is as up to date as it could be as a result. There's some stuff in Sublime Text 4 that's different now than what it was talking about. Those ones are old enough that the menu items for looking at preferences were still 2 items and not one, for example. But apart from that, it was not bad. I learned some stuff. Ah, there you go. Oh, yeah. Well, then it's probably very easy to find. Hmm. If we were to look at this, I clicked that, right? Yes, yes, we did. And then we go here, and then we can go, oh, whoops, pardon me, here, support, perfect workflow in Sublime Text 2. Oh, wait, no, that's not the deal. Or maybe it did. Oh, this one here, it's Skillshare Udemy course with Ben Frayne. There you go. Here, I'll provide a quick link. There you go. I've also, I believe I have this book because for a while there, you could get a discount for the code from Package Control, or maybe, oh, is a discount for purchasing SFTP and SVN, I think. Um, but yeah, neat. Skillshare and Udemy. That totally explains why I knew what both of those things were. So, waha, there you go. So yeah, this will probably help you out as well. Oh, we don't care about that. On the whole, it's kind of a neat little thing. Oh yeah, I forgot what it was we were going to actually do there. What makes the word true red? This rule. In this particular case, we could use the API to get the same information. But if we wanted to know what makes these command classes look like this, one is the default color scheme rule that applies an orange foreground color, and also my user version applies a font style to not quite the same scope, but still one that totally matches. So not everything that's in entity.name will glow in my particular case, only in Python and only names and support functions. Whoops. Whoops. What else can we do? Oh, that's the support function, so that should be the same. Oh, look, there's more of them in this one. Oh, interesting. Two rules. So this needs to be slightly smarter, I guess, because it needs to... No, it needs to order them by score, doesn't it? Is it possible to automate Sublime? Well, I mean, for example, um, if we wanted to know about something to do with color schemes, like how you specify colors, I created an automation for that talks directly to my YouTube channel. So there's that. One of the powers of Sublime is being able to create plugins. So in that regard, yes. Depends on what you want to do, though. You can use macros to record and play back a sequence of commands at a single key press. That's also used sometimes for automation of things. That's something that's built in. You can chain multiple commands or key presses together as well. Corey Schaefer. Oh, is that the guy that does a lot of the video editing software from Blackmagic, DaVinci? Is Corey Schaefer the guy that does DaVinci Resolve tutorials as well? I've never seen any of his Sublime stuff, but I don't think. Anyway, if that's the same person. But his DaVinci stuff is quite cool. I may be thinking of somebody else, though. Hmm. There we go. Python stuff, Python stuff. Ah, there you go. Now, why am I thinking? Why am I thinking DaVinci Resolve? Is that the same guy, or are there just two people with different names or similar names, or am I just awful? Certainly can't spell, I'll tell you that. Oh, look, now it's searching my channel. Thanks, guy. I'm going to be very curious. Python, Python, Python. Yeah, I think that's a different dude. Oh, well, that's. Sorry. I'm thinking of Casey Ferris. Pardon me. It's kind of the same name. It starts with an A, starts with a C. Right. I'm gonna say as a proof of concept. Yeah, let's document what we have here. When invoked, this opens a new Scratch panel that shows you all of the color rules that apply, that are applying style to the text under the cursor. These are shown roughly in the order in which they apply. Things to do here include patching in global foreground color if none of the rules has one, scoring rules and laying them out based on their order, and probably other things too. Will a company hire me if I'm a pro at Sublime besides role-specific skills? I would say that you are going to get hired if you're a pro at your job. I don't think the tool that you use should really have any bearing on whether or not someone hires you, right? You either know how to write web pages or code, or you don't. Whether you use Notepad or Sublime or anything else should be, on the whole, entirely inconsequential to that particular task. Unless you're in a very specific industry, you know. If you're in the 3D industry, then you probably need to know certain 3D software that your company is going to use. They're not going to hire you if you only know Maya, but they're a Blender house, for example. But for coding purposes, I don't think that that would necessarily make any difference one way or the other. At my company, I'm one of two people that I'm aware of that uses Sublime. Oh, wait, no, that guy left. Just me. That I've seen. Anyway, I've convinced a few people to use Merge, though, when they've seen me do stuff in screen shares. You're super surprised the support page doesn't list my channel? Well, there is like a lot of long, boring videos on there. The ultimate goal is to tighten that up somewhat. Oh, it does? No, well, there you go. Then you shouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah. If you're working for a very specific kind of company, you know, uh, Sublime isn't going to help you if you're working at a tool and die company that requires you to know how to use a certain kind of CNC milling machine in order to construct parts. For that, you probably need to be really skilled in that particular thing. But when it comes to coding, at least as far as I've seen, the company doesn't really care what tool you use as long as you come up with a result, I think. I mean, technically speaking, parts of my company, well, my company is sort of a Microsoft house for anything that's not VMS related, but we have Visual Studio, full on Visual Studio on some machines, but not on all machines. If we want it, we can have it, but they don't enforce that it be there. Despite the fact that we're developers, you think if you give a developer a box, you're going to put developer tools on it. Not in my company. So there's that. Um, yeah, I think I think this is what we're gonna call the stream for tonight. We've gone a little bit over. This is a fun little thing. There's got to be. This could probably be visualized a little bit better. Um, I don't know necessarily how. Certainly by using the same thing. Oh, yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be the ultimate in irony if IntelliJ developers were actually using Sublime behind the scenes? I imagine they're forced to eat their own dog food at that particular company. I mean, I know Sublime, yeah, well, Ben knows Sublime HQ use their own tool to write their own software. It's been mentioned many a time when someone points out that it's impossible to like write C++ code if you don't have this, that, or the other. And then the devs are like, well, actually, Sublime's written in C++ and we use it as the editor and it seems to work just fine for us. Just goes to show tools are a very personalized sort of thing. I'd forgotten about that. I mean, interesting. Does John force you to use Sublime or do you just use it because you're working on it? Yes. You can have a terminal in Sublime if you want using a plugin. The video you want for that is Terminus, and or the package you want. Pardon me. Is Terminus, and you best believe there are videos related to that. Also, if you're going to create any build system, when you get to that part that executes an external program and that program wants to ask the user for input, you're going to want to use Terminus for that. There's a build for that. There's a video for that on the channel as well. A couple, as a matter of fact. And the videos for Terminus are also linked from the Terminus package page on package control as well. But yes, if you want to have a terminal in Sublime, that is possible. Some people prefer to use a terminal outside of Sublime. As you can see, I tend to do that sort of thing myself. For most things, it's handy to do some quick terminal stuff in Sublime, but I tend to use external terminals for more long-term tasks, if you will. Terminus works across Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, and is completely free and will work the same on all of them. Yep, as a matter of fact, that computer that I'm pointing at right now is Windows. This one's Linux. That one's Mac OS, and I use it on all of them. It comes highly recommended if you want to have a terminal inside of Sublime. Interesting. I guess it kind of makes sense that, if you're writing the software, you probably want to be using it so that you can discover problems, find bugs, come up with new usability concerns and such. I don't think I would have expected that this just is speaking to, my level of thinking on this. I wouldn't so much think that someone would tell you that it's expected that you use it. I would just expect that you would want to because it's pretty cool. That's just me, though. I assume you probably agree with that as well, since, you're one of the developers of it and so forth. Thanks. We're gonna jump on out here. I need to get some stuff ready for a meeting that's going to be happening tomorrow. A little bit of training type stuff. Not to worry, we will be back next week here. Also, I stream on Wednesdays and Fridays on Twitch if you'd like to jump in there. And floating this idea for the month of December, we're pondering doing a Devember where every day is a live stream. And that live stream would focus on working on that particular project. I'm not entirely sure yet if I'm ready to pull the trigger on 31 nonstop days of streaming, but if I do, then all streams will be on Twitch for the month of December and not here. Just because otherwise, I'd have to do a stream here and then do a stream on Twitch to work on the November project because it's sort of a requirement. Unless the thing we're working on is a Sublime Text package. Anyway, thank you, G-Ban and Comcast. Says we stream here on YouTube every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific. I believe if you follow and ring the bell, you'll get notified. And yeah, I think so. It should tell you about it, and you can click to be reminded. I don't make nearly as much use of that for my own streams as I do for other stuff. I hope everybody has a Sublime day and a Sublime week. Catch you on a Twitch stream and maybe in next week's stream as well, where maybe we'll continue working on this or some other questions that you might have in Sublime Text. Hope everybody has a fantastic week. We'll see you then. And now I reach and I press the button thusly. Night, everyone.